Chaadar jheeni, rang jheeni.
Is it audible now? The sound is audible?
Not right now.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Gone again. Yeah.
यदि पांच तत्व का पुतला
Aina.
और मानुष धर जाना यदि एक का लागे बिछुड़ते यदि एक का लागे बिछुड़ते और बिसर गया सब यदि मन मथुरा दिल द्वारका निकाया काशी जा यदि मन मथुरा दिल द्वारका निकाया काशी ये 10 द्वार है का पिंजरा नया में जो तुम जा ये 10 द्वार है का पिंजरा नया में जो तू साचा बाणिया तो साची हाथ लगा जो तू साचा अंदर झाड़ू दे के और कचरा दे तो बाहर अरे अंदर झाड़ू दे के केवल एक होता है जैसे प्रेम का रंग केवल एक होता है
The color of love is just one. You have a spectrum that has many colors. The color of love is just one. But you have a spectrum, it all becomes one. It has many colors. But you go, it all becomes one.
Very beautiful.
Goes back to CAS.
Wonderful.
Kapilji, this is a good illustration of what
Wonderful. In fact, it proves so many things. And it places a whole lecture. You know, something composed in the 13th century. You know, 700, 900 years ago, composed in a place which is about 1400 miles from where it is being sung. You see, in Rajasthan. And it is being sung by people whose language is not the language in which this was originally composed. Kabir. And they are singing the same language. All the myths that you have about India, so-called diversity and difference and all that, I mean, 900 years across time and 1,000 miles across space, the language communicates to everybody, even today. But if you start going by the educated Indians, then you know from Uttar Pradesh, Bhojpuri, then Awadhi, and then Haryanvi, then Punjabi, then Rajasthani, so many languages. How will people communicate? So that is busted, one. Second, it also tells you what is Indian literature. This is Indian literature. This is a great poem composed by a saint poet. Of course, we say today saint poet, Sant Kavi. Sant or saint mein, English people borrowed the word saint from our word Sant. Isn't that so? There's a Proto-Indo-European, no problem. The poem, Kabir, as you know, was a Nirguna Kavi, Nirguna. You know, there is a God as a Nirguna and a Saguna. Brahman has a Nirguna Rupa and a Saguna Rupa. In Saguna Rupa, you have Akriti and Rupa, forms and color. In Nirguna, it is Nirakara. It has no Akara and in Nirguna. Nirguna. And mystical poet. In English, we say mystic poet. Mystic, that is, he reads mystery into the existence. Into the existence. He is one of the most popularly sung poets of India. One of the most popular. The other one, of course, is Tulsi. Tulsi ke dohe or Kabir ke dohe. You know, in every town of India, the people who prepare the pan for you, or the people who sell on thela the vegetables, you will find many of them singing these, you know, because for Indians, memory is very important, you know, because pragya, intelligence, intellect is defined in India as made up of memory, vimarsha, permutation, reflection on what you have in the mind, and prayoga, and then using it. So these people, these ordinary people, UNESCO illiterate people, they have entire Kabir and Tulsi in their mind here. While educated Indians often ask each other, what is 5 into 7? 5 into 7 क्या होता है? 5 into 7 क्या होता है? Calculator चाहिए उनको, है ना? So this is a cultural, you know, you must understand the country you belong to. You must understand the intellect that is a natural property of the people of this country. Tremendous mind, tremendous intellect. And you also must remind yourself of the great surviving ability, the survivability of this civilization. I mean, if you have something written 900 years ago, imagine England, 900 years ago, 1100 something. And Peer Plowman is the poem. Nobody in England will be able to, you know, recite you that poem today. Nobody. Here's something written 900 years ago. How it has been maintained? It has been maintained intact and alive. And because literature, like any other series, any other human effort, is not an end in itself. It has to promote the welfare of the people. And welfare of the people is promoted by giving them the right values of life, the right understanding of what you are, what a human being is, what is life, jiva. We are not bothered only about human beings. We don't talk about human rights. Our Jaina people, they talk of right of the living, right of jiva. Every living being has a right to live, a right to live. So, you know, when there was a chikungunya, it spread like a pandemic. Millions of chickens were killed by people in Europe, millions. But in India, people simply stopped eating chicken. They didn't kill the chicken because we have a respect for life, living. And that philosophy, Jivan Auchitya, Kshemendra, a Sanskrit poetician, says, what is the point of a beautiful poem with beautiful imagery, beautiful similes, if it does not teach you the propriety of life? What is appropriate for life? Jivan Auchitya. So all this. So this poem, the first few lines, I'll just tell you what he's saying. That this Putala, he doesn't say this human being. Putala. Putala is a statue. ये जो मैनेक्विन देखते हैं ना आप लेडीज की ड्रेसेस की दुकान में, मैनेक्विन, वो पुतला है. पुतला, उसके अंदर प्राण नहीं होता. It doesn't have prana. It doesn't have life inside. He says this putla, this human body, 5 tattva, 5 primordial elements, water, air, energy, sun, and so on. 5 tattva ka putla. 5 tattva ka putla. इसको नाम दिया मनुष्य. जब इसमें प्राण आ गए तो इसको नाम, it is named मनुष्य. मनुष्य, मनुष्य. एक एलिमेंट जब उसका निकल गया, एक एलिमेंट, वो जो लाइफ निकल गया, it collapses. It collapses. ये है इसकी ट्रांजिएंस, स्ट्रक्चर. Then there is a very beautiful उनका के एक है मथुरा दिल है द्वारका, 10 द्वार का पिंजरा. There are 10 openings in this body. Guru Gorakhnath also, Gorakh Bani, Nanak Bani, Kabir Bani, Tulsi Bani, we have magnificent body of literature, poetical literature, which is all called Bani, Vani. And they are all philosophical poets. But you won't really, when you read them, enjoy, they are like transparent streams of water. You can see the bottom. आपको लगेगा अरे बड़ा ये तो बड़ा simple है. But when you step into it, the water will go over your head. It is so deep in thought. 2 birds sit on the same branch of a tree. One eats the fruit, the other watches. I think I have given you this example in one of my lectures earlier also. It is from Taittiriya Upanishad. It's a beautiful image. 2 birds are sitting on a fruit tree. One is eating, the other is watching. There are many meanings to it, but what it means is that in each one of us are 2 birds. One is the bhokta, experiencer, and the other is the observer. The observer. We are our observer. We observe what we do. We are the only ones who know everything about us. We are experiencer and the observer. And then they go into vision of the soul. So the 10 dwar, 10. Guru Gorakhnath also has a poem which is generally referred to as Bangla. Gorakh ne Bangla gaya. Gorakh sang Bangla. 10 dwar ka Bangla. This body, 10 openings. Senses अपनी आपके गिनिए सारी शरीर की 10 openings. बीच पवन का खंबा. And this is a structure with 10 openings, and there is a pillar of air in the middle. Pavan ka khamba. When you breathe. Pavan ka khamba. Aata jata koi na dekhe, yahi ek achamba. No one knows. When no one has seen, this breath enters the body in the beginning, and no one sees when this breath leaves the body finally. कि प्राण कब आते हैं, प्राण कब जाते हैं, कोई नहीं देखता. यही एक अचंभा. दिस इज द मिरेकल. 10 द्वार का पिंजरा, 10 द्वार का पिंजरा. But Kabir says, Gorakhnath says, 10 द्वार का पिंजरा, 10 द्वार का बंगला, बीच पवन का खंबा. Kabir says, 10 द्वार का पिंजरा. It is a pinjara, a cage. It's a cage. This body is a cage. What is caged inside? उसके जिसमें ज्योत समाये, एक ज्योति, a light is encompassed in this cage. इसके अंदर एक ज्योति है. So Kabir says, go inside and become one with that ज्योति. आत्म साक्षात करो, अपने को देखो. अच्छा है. Is it good? Is it great poetry? Is it profound poetry? And it is a poetry which is sung and understood by ordinary people. Ordinary people. Anyways, so ye, you're tempting me, maybe in the next lecture series that he starts, I'll give you some more, lot of this kind of literary experience. This is a literary experience which all of us must ensure. And there are so many. Another, jhini re rang jhini. There is a reference to that, ये जो इसके ऊपर जो चद्दर है ना, बहुत पतली है, बड़ी झीनी है, जिसने इस ज्योति को संभाला हुआ है. और इसका रंग भी एक है. इसका रंग जो है, क्या रंग है इसका? रंग तो बहुत होते हैं, पर इसका रंग एक ही है. रंग है, उसका रंग है, ये उसका, उस ज्योति का रंग है. वो लाइट है, इसमें लाइट है. वो लाइट जो है वो इसको लाइटन करती है, And of course, literature, here in this case, poetry, is not separable from music. And music is both vocal and instrumental. You must have noticed the instruments are mostly Indian instruments. है ना? Harmonium है, एक तारा है, you see. And the total in the Natya Shastra, Bharat's Natya Shastra, it discusses music, discusses dance, discusses language, and discusses performance, enactment. कैसे enact करते हैं? How do we Anyway, राम रस चादर झीनी. रस और रंग में, there is a relationship between ras and rang. There is a relationship between experience and color. The state of being and color. When you are very happy, you feel a fixation with light colors, bright light colors. And when you are sad, you have a fixation with deep colors, deep and dark colors. So there is a relationship between the experience of life and the color. And the highest joy, highest kind of bliss is considered satarangi, what you see in the sky after the rains, that colors, so many colors, so many rasa. So there are nava rasa, 8 rasa, and there are those colors. White and black are not colors. They are not included in that. White and black are not colors. but others are colors, and they ultimately merge in this. Anyway, let me quickly, today, without going into details, I said yesterday, the first point I made was that there are so many literatures in India in so many languages, and people talk of different literature, Marathi, Bangla, and all that. But then we say that there is an Indian literature. All this is Indian literature. Now, because of the differences of languages, but when we look closely at languages, we find that the languages are also not really very different from each other for various things. And secondly, so Indianness is not disturbed by the medium. This is in Hindi. If you read Tyagaraja's lyrics in Tamil, or if you read Andala, or if you read Basvanna in Kannada, you read Tukaram in Marathi, you will have the same thoughts. There is a cultural synthesis. There is a synthesis of thought and synthesis of the worldview, which is there in all Indian people and expresses itself in all Indian languages. That is why I argue that if you give education through Indian languages, not one, through all the state languages, people will come closer to each other than when you are teaching them through English. Because English does not carry your culture. It does not. It teaches you some of the Western kinds of, ideas like conflict, alienation, existentialism, difference, bhed, and all that. But if you give education in Indian languages, all Indian languages communicate the same ethos of life. People will become closer to each other as they had been, for all these thousands of years. Then the character of all Indian literatures is oral. It is performative, as you have just seen. And the dominant forms are story, poem, natak. You see, the story, the poetry, rather than poetry, we use the word song. The story, narrative, song, drama, and pravachan. Pravachan is a very common form, and it comes down from Vedic times. Exposition of ideas, exposition of texts, because oral texts are very dense, expressed in very few words. They all need an exposition. And some of the greatest Indian minds have been exegetes, interpreters. They have been interpreters. So Katha Pravachana Parampara, the tradition of narration and exposition is very ancient. All our mind, like Adi Shankaracharya was a Pravachanakar. He was a Pravachanakar. They are called Parivrajakas, Parivrajak Parampara. They will travel from place to place, walk from place to place, and halt in villages and give narrative expositions. All expositions are laced with stories, drishtanta, examples, stories. And the stories, drishtanta, they come from ordinary life, the kitchen and the field and all that. The songs are in all Indian languages. My encyclopedia of Indian poetics shall be out now in another month or two. You see, there we have collected the examples of all these things. The songs, they are about sola sanskar. The sanskar from birth to death. Birth to death. Human life में जो stages होती हैं, वैसे उसमें जब बच्चे को पहली बार लिखना सिखाते हैं, शिक्षा सिखाते हैं, वो एक संस्कार होता है, उसके लिए गीत है, एंगेजमेंट के गीत हैं, शादी के गीत हैं, गर्भाधान के गीत हैं, जन्म के गीत हैं, और इसी तरह चलते जाइए, पूरे संस्कार गिनते जाइए, मरने के भी। और एवरीथिंग, एवरी स्टेज इन ह्यूमन लाइफ is celebrated by a song. That is why the Indian culture is essentially celebratory. We are a celebratory people. हम गाते हैं और खाते हैं। कोई मरता भी है तो हम गाते हैं और खाते हैं और खिलाते हैं, खाते हैं और खिलाते हैं। You know, we eat and feed, we sing and dance in every stage of our life. So Indian culture, contrary to the impression, we are a very joyous people, very joyous people, very joyous life. You have to go into a cold country and, go walk through to the day, you will not find a single smiling or a laughing person. But if you go to Punjab and you stand in any market, you will have everybody laughing. And even when a poor rickshaw wala, after driving the rickshaw through the day, in the evening, they all sit together, they light a fire, and they laugh and they sing. And, my daughter asked me, Papa, how can they sing and laugh? They are so poor and they are sitting here. I said, that is the point. Happiness is not brought about by money. Happiness is an inward condition. And it is a condition which is brought about by thought, by ideas, by what you think of life, what you think life should be. Happiness comes from that, and not from how many air conditioners you have put in a large room, you see, or how many heaters you can put at this time in Lucknow. Happiness doesn't come from that. So suniye, isliye ye sanskar. Then vocation, there are songs of vocation. In the Northeast, you have hunting songs. When they hunt, and in other parts of India, you have the ladies, when they plant the seeds in the field, they sing. They sing at the time of that. And they sing when they are cutting the crops, because singing takes away the kind of rhythmic boredom that you get when you do the same kind of job all the time. So they sing. And then there are songs of festivals, and there are songs of social occasions. So in all Indian languages, you have high frequency of these sounds. The songs also vary. The songs vary from community to community in the same language, from one caste to the other caste. You will be amazed that in Kerala, there is a Muslim Ramayana. And there are songs from that Muslim Ramayana, where of course Hanuman is Rahman or something, like that. But then the story, the narrative is the same. But there are variations. It is multiple, but it is the same. वो जो बीच में जो पवन का खंबा है वो एक ही है. It is the same. It holds it together. And Indianness also comes from the genius of the race, the Indian people. We live in a well-defined area. We have lived together for centuries. We have had historical experience. We have the same environment. You observe anytime, these days, or at the time of, let's say, another month or so, most of the time of the year, the temperatures all over India range within 5 degrees. Within 5 degrees. Don't go to the mountains, but in the plains. Chennai ka temperature, March, April mein, Bombay ka temperature, Amritsar ka temperature, you will find, that kind of एक range के अंदर है सारा. Rains हो रही हैं, तो rains हो रही हैं, तो rains सब जगह हो रही हैं. इधर भी हो रही, north east में हो रही, north west में हो रही, south में हो रही हैं. So the environment, the history, the system, this brings about. And also there is in all the Indian people, there is basically a philosophy which is a philosophy of abstinence. Nivritti marga, nivritti. Nivrittisu mahaphala. Therefore, tyaga, giving up things is more important than acquiring things. We do not respect people who acquire. We respect people who give away. So we respect a Buddha. We didn't respect Gautam when he was a prince. We would not have respected him if he had become an emperor. But thousands of years of respect and devotion because he gave away. Tyaga, renunciation. And the tyaga is there is in every havan that is performed in the Vedic system, at the end of it they say idam namam. Idam namam. I am doing this not for myself. Not for myself. So the basic spirit of being for others, lok sangraha, the welfare of the people, not for myself. And this informs all Indian literature. You can take Bankim's novels, you can take anything. The characters that you admire are those. Why Yudhishthir, is considered one of the. There are only two persons in Mahabharata who reflect on what they should do, what they should not do. One is Yudhishthir. He is always worried whether what I am doing is right or not. And he is not always, unlike his other people like Duryodhana, worried only about acquiring things for himself. These renunciation is there. Forgiveness is there in this. So this is a cultural synthesis all over the country, and it expresses itself. In human life, the subject matter of human life, Indian literature, you see, you have values and you have relationships, rishte. You see, how people relate to each other, And it is, the other day I gave the example of Krishna and Draupadi, or you take any relationships which are subject of reverence, and they are the relation. It is the human relationships which are important. Rishte. In a very old book, Yaska, he gives a beautiful example. He says, why an Indian individual? He doesn't use that word because he had not read Satra. But what he means is this: no individual, Indian individual, will ever feel alone or solitary. Never. Because the identity of an individual in India is in terms of his relationships. And then he gives an example that a girl in a family has so many names. Somebody calls her Beti, somebody calls her Behan, somebody calls her Bhabhi, somebody calls her Chachi, somebody calls her Mami, somebody calls her Bua, somebody calls her Bhatiji, somebody calls her Poti, somebody calls her Nati. So that one girl, what is the network that she is a part of? And that network gives her the identity. ये आजकल जो अस्मिता का जो प्रकोप है ना, identity, I am worried about my identity. What is my identity? I have no identity by myself. I am only in terms of whose son I am, whose brother I am, whose nephew I am, whose grandson I am. That is how I will introduce myself also when people ask me. So the relationships are very important. And human beings, portrayal of human beings. Some of the modern literature, you see, I'll come to that again in a little while. But, there are Asuri Vritti and Daivi Vritti. Those who have Sadvrittis. Charak also in a Samhita talks of Sadvrittis. Vrittis are tendencies of the mind, their attitudes, you can call them, emotions, whatever. Those which are Sat, which are positive, What are those? Those which do good to others. जैसे क्षमा है, forgiveness है, दया है, दया, दया बहुत बड़ी वैल्यू मानी जाती है. दया, दया doesn't mean you can क्या आपने किसी को कुछ दे दिया तो आप उस दिन आगे बड़े आराम से बैठे और कहा कि मैं तो बड़ा अच्छा आदमी हूं, आज मैंने 50 रुपए दे दिए, गरीबों को दे दिए. Many of us, when they do charity, we do it more for ourselves, to build our ego. अरे बड़ी सर्दी है, मैंने 50 कंबल बांट दिए. But when the Bible says, when your right hand gives, let not your left hand know. You should not be conscious. वो दया जो है instinctive होती है कईयों में. It is not the acquired virtue, दया. And दया is a very important value. There are some, दया धर्म का मूल है. I sang the other day. पाप मूल अभिमान. दया कभी ना छाड़िए जब तक घट में प्राण. So this is how literature teaches you that you cultivate this value. Kindness. Kindness to others. Kindness. Chapter 16 of Bhagavad Gita, verse 1 to 5, you have a list of these values. And all literature, whether Bangla or Marathi or Punjabi or something, when it upholds something, it upholds those values. The sacredness of all life is very important, as I already said that. Anyway, all Indian literatures, their forms, their structures, their meters, they are all covered by what is called Sanskrit literary theory. Sanskrit poetics is the default poetics of all Indian literatures. All Indian literature. Chand bhi hai. There is a local and a global. जैसे तत् सम तद भव होता है, थोड़ा local variation होता है, but the structure, the basic structure, as in the case of sounds of a language, in the case of literature also, the basic poetics is the Sanskrit poetics, which is the default poetics. I'll give you one example. Sayyid Kalimullah Hussain, a 16th century saint of Hyderabad, he composed a Sanskrit poetics text, Shringar Manjari. And you know what he called it? He said, this is a book about Andhra Bhasha. This is about the poetry of the Andhra people, Andhra language, that is Telugu. So he sees no difference between the Telugu poetics and the Sanskrit poetics, or Telugu and Sanskrit. He sees no difference. So this is what this has happened because of the. So let's now. I think without wasting much time, I will quickly sum up, mention the points without going into too much talk about them.
Kapilji, after you do this, can we take a little time for a few questions?
Let me just please stop me.
Yes.
Just take 5 minutes. I will now only read out the points. You see, kindly, because if everybody needs, everything needs explanation. And I think Ninoji should give me a series of lectures, and independent of this IKS system. If you give me 5 or 10 lectures, I can talk about Indian literature at peace and at length. But then in this, I will now finish off. 2 parallel literatures are there in India today. One is what I call metropolitan, Shahri, Nagri, metropolitan, modern city literature, which is a literature which has been composed under the influence of the West. It has, like novel, it has Western themes, poetry bhi hai. It has Western themes, it has Western form, and it has Western values. And the greatest theme of this literature is the triangle. 2 women and 1 man, or 2 men and 1 woman. This is the greatest theme of this metropolitan literature. And all the tensions. You see that I'm not free. The freedom of choice. Freedom from sacred relationships. is the definition of freedom. You see, I may not say sacred. Freedom from relationships which will ultimately give you happiness is the theme of this, most of this literature. And you know the themes: alienation, existentialism, and so on and so on. But an Indian, as an Indian, I have never felt alienated. In fact, I have often prayed to God that these people should leave me alone. Hmm? But I'm never left alone. I have so many obligations. You see, if even today, if my sister, you know, living 1,000 miles away, sends me a message that, brother, I want your help, please come, I will have to go. And I go. I go. So I'm not alien. I cannot be solitary and lonely by myself. And I have no existential problem. Existential problems are for people who live for themselves. But if in the Indian philosophy, if you are in a kartavya parak samaj, a duty-oriented society, you have no existential problems. No existential problem. Purpose of your life is to work for others. To work for, if you are an elder mother, educate your younger brother. If you are elder and your sister is to be married, you arrange for a marriage. You, all the time you do, you have purposeful life. So there is no existentialism. But the themes of this literature, metropolitan literature, has very limited audience. पढ़े लिखे लोग और वो भी जो थोड़े और उसके जो characters हैं ना, the characters of metropolitan literature are generally fit for hospitalization. I mean, they should be treated for their mental ailments rather than considered as ideal characters of literature. In a zoo story, there is a play, zoo story. There is this protagonist who, after his office, he goes to a garden and he sits there for hours doing nothing, watching this and watching that, and is afraid to go home. Then when he goes home, it is a little dark. And his home is what? His home is cats, full of cats. And then he's because he has separated from his wife, and his wife has, and his children are not with him, or maybe one child is with him, one is with the other. Now these people need treatment. They are not great literary characters. He's not an Agamemnon. He's not Ulysses. He's not Achilles, and he's not Hector. They are small people. And but by the way, but when a small man becomes a hero, is a protagonist in a literature, he ceases to be a small person, because he becomes an object of study for hundreds and thousands of people. So what kind of persons you should project as to project? Literature also has a philosophy. There has to be a philosophy of literature. Indian literature, so there are two. One is the traditional. Our traditional literature abhi bhi khoob compose hota hai. There are, in fact, in every village you have a poet, and he will be composing something, either about the weather, either about beautiful nature, or something, or some goodness, or he will sing of a hero, Prithviraj Raso, for example, Prithviraj Raso, a folk poem. I'll give you just two lines from that. 14 साल कूकर 12 साल कूकर जीवे 14 साल सियार 16 साल खत्री जीवे आकी को धिकार. The poet says, and this is a 12th century poem. He says that a cock, a hen, it lives for about 10 to 12 years. You see, and a jackal lives for 14 years. A kshatriya lives for 16 years. If he is more than 16 and still alive, then fie on him. He must be a coward. He must have run away from a battlefield. Because by 16, a kshatriya is to be dead, because he has to fight. No, this is a very different world. And all the medieval narratives, I will not have time today for the love narratives of Punjab, but the medieval narratives. The subject matter and all that, well, I think in all my observations, subject, that there is an ethical imperative to all Indian literature. Ethical imperative. You are not, you cannot, I mean, the kind of modern, the disturbing, Lionel Trillings, a very great English critic, described modern literature. You know how? He said, it has imagination of disaster. Imagination of disaster. Our literature is an affirmative literature. Affirmative literature. They say that Mahabharata, after 36 lakh people die in 2 days, and the entire area, the funeral pyres are burning. But at the end of it all, you experience Shantaras, tranquil, a state of tranquility, state of tranquility. Ultimately, the object of individual effort, every day, every month, every year, each life is to attain peace, a peaceful state. It is called in the Vedic literature Rita, a balance, an equilibrium, When good and evil are in equilibrium in an individual, he remains sane. When one predominates, when the Asuri Sampada predominates, or when the two clash with each other, then the man develops, mental ailments, needs treatment. Society, if there is a rhythm, balance, then the society is peaceful. When there is conflict, it is not peaceful. And in the cosmos, when there is balance of attraction between stars, the stars remain in their position. But when the rhythm is disturbed, then a star breaks, a star falls. So rhythm is the highest value, equilibrium, attaining equilibrium. And two Indian English writers, only 2 Indian English writers have this, who are English writers, but they are traditional. R.K. Narayan and Ruskin Bond. If you have not read them, please read them. And you have 2 English novelists who are Indian English novelists properly. No other English novelist is Indian writing in English is neither Indian nor writing. You see, except in the case of these 2 or 3 people. Okay, then I think I have 1 or 2 points. I have a lot of things to say about the great narrative. A lot to say about the Bhakti movement. Important, remember, Bhakti movement was instrumental in democratizing knowledge. And it democratized knowledge by translating the classical thought into Indian languages, vernaculars. It vernacularized the knowledge. And by vernacularizing knowledge, it democratized knowledge. Knowledge in India, because it is to be received by the ear and it is vernacular, knowledge in India is neither elitist nor meant for the elite. It is for the masses. And every day in the Pravachan Parampara, you hear millions of people listen to these people. That's why every average Indian is a UNESCO illiterate, but highly educated, particularly those who have not been victimized by English education. You see, they are highly educated people. Okay. And then there are 3 sources of literature these days. One is RI literature, resident Indian literature, people who are residing here and who think like Indians. Second is NRI literature, non-resident Indian literature, what is called diasporic literature. They don't live here, they live elsewhere, but they look at us from the distance, and from their own glasses. And the third is RNI literature, resident non-Indian literature. They live here, but they think like there was a poet Shiv Kumar in English who will describe an Indian lake, small lake like Badka Lake in Delhi, and he will be reminded of Lake Geneva. So he's a resident non-Indian. He sees things here, but understands them in terms of that. I remember my friend who went to T3 terminal for the first time and came back and told me, beautiful, just like the Frankfurt airport. See, so you are able to see the beauty or what it is only in terms of what is outside. They are RNI, resident non-Indians, then non-resident Indians, and then resident Indians. So these are three kinds of authors that you have today. Thank you very much. One more thing I can say, someday I will talk about Indian literature in the river analogy. I'll show you how, like a river, it arises, how it spreads, how it moved down, and how it covered the whole country. Some other day. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kapil. Thank you for this beautiful landscape, literaturescape of India, as we called it. Can I take a few minutes of your time for some?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Certainly.
Some of them actually you have already addressed. So maybe in a very summary form, we can deal with them. They come often, but I think you have in a way already answered. So one is the following: some scholars believe that Valmiki's Ramayana is the original Ramakatha, and other Ramakathas are its renditions. However, others argue that Ramayana, probably of Valmiki, is only one of the many Ramakathas. Similarly for Mahabharata, what is your perspective on this? You already touched upon this yesterday. So briefly you can.
This search for an authentic and authoritative text, one text. It is a monistic concept, and it comes from the Abrahamic monism. They are always searching for one truth, one God, one primary text. We don't believe in that. We don't believe in that at all. For us, all Ram Kathas are good. All Mahabharata versions are okay. We accept all. When I say that Ramayana is only Valmiki, because that is how it is named. It is Valmiki ki Ramayana. It was the first codified, just as Panini's codified Ashtadhyayi is the only grammar, complete grammar that we have. There are a number of other grammars. There are 9 schools of grammar, but there is one grammar. There is Patanjali's Mahabhashya, no second one. But then there are hundreds of bhashyas. They are not dismissed. The search for, in fact, there was once about many years ago, the IGNC organized a discussion seminar on an authoritative text of Mahabharata. Because as you know, even today, Mahabharata has 3 recensions: the Kumbhakonam, the Puna, and the Mithila. And the numbers of shlokas vary. But what Gita Press has done, it has put together all these and the shlokas and integrated them and made one edition with 1,02,000 shlokas. Of course, they tell you that these shlokas are taken from this, from this, but then it's perfect. Fine. What is the problem? What is the problem? The problem arises when people like, the English professor, I'm forgetting his name, Kannada professor who went to USA and he taught there and all that. And he looked at the NRI.
A.K. Ramanujan, sir. A.K. Ramanujan.
Yes, Ramanujan. You see, the NRI look and no, these people, the Western mind is a conflictual mind, conflict-oriented. Their theories are also conflict-oriented. You see, if you study their Renaissance downwards, first of all, they had a fight with God. You know, so they say God is dead. So they killed God in Renaissance. First, God is the enemy. After that, man is the enemy of man. You see, man is the enemy of man. Class war. And then woman is the enemy of man. Family, or man is the enemy of woman. Right? And then, there are minor, but all theories are also conflict oriented, conflict and contrast. So they, looking at a distance, जैनियों ने रामायण लिखी, जैन रामायण में हनुमान ऐसे हैं, राम ऐसा है, सीता ऐसी है. It doesn't matter. What matters is, at the time of Dussehra, 9 days before Dussehra, 100,000 Ram Leelas are held in India. 100,000, in which millions of people participate. More than the population of these countries from where these people speak to us. And they all have a paradigm story, which has been reworded, simplified, जैसे Tulsi Ramayan. Then Tulsi Ramayan was a vernacularization of Valmiki Ramayan. But every vernacularization is also a recontextualization. And that Tulsi Ramcharitmanas was then recontextualized by Radhe Shyam Ki Ramayan. And Radhe Shyam Ki Ramayan is used by people in Ramlila. It is like a script for a performance. You see, every ordinary people, we people make jokes. We people make a lot of jokes about Ram and Hanuman and Sita and all that. You see, but then we are able to make jokes about us because we believe in them. We believe in them, and we don't feel unsure. We don't feel it. Ram jaisa Maryada Purush Ram. There is no other character in the world. You see, when he comes back after 14 years of Vanvasa, he goes first straight to Kekai, not to his mother Kaushalya. Because he is aware, he knows that for 14 years, my mother, this mother, Kekai is his mother also, this mother has been feeling guilty, has been miserable, has been feeling very miserable. So he first goes to her and he touches her feet, and Kekai is crying. See, there is no other character like that in the world's literature. No other character. And therefore, anybody can have, and I myself have I have also my own version of Ramayana in joke. I will give you 2 lines. एक था राम, एक था रामन्ना, एक था रावन्ना. एक था राम, एक था रावण. वा ने वा की त्रिया चुराई, उसने उसकी बीवी चुरा ली. वा ने वा को मारन्ना, उसने उसको मार दिया. इतनी सी कथा भाई, और तुलसीदास लिखे पोथन्ना. कहानी तो इतनी सी है और उसने इतनी बड़ी किताब लिख दी. This is a folk saying. Folk saying. What does it matter? Does it mean that the man who says this, he doesn't revere Rama? Can there be a character like Rama? No, there cannot be. और बहुत चीजें हैं. Imagine, लगता आसान है. You see that वो जो लेडी, क्या वो जो बुजुर्ग लेडी, नाम भूल गया, वो जो बेर खिलाती हैं उनको, चख के बेर खिलाती हैं कि मीठा है कि खट्टा है. शबरी, मीठा है खट्टा है. We hear all kinds of stories about Dalitons ka ye wo and all that. You see, he tastes and gives it, and he's eating so happily. He's eating so happily. Lakshman looks disapprovingly. वो उसको देती है, तो वो as she looks away, he throws it. He doesn't eat. Rama is happily, and the Rit, the concept of rit, balance. Every act, every individual has to be balanced. They say it's a legend, it's a myth, but it is created to make a point. That jo Sanjeevani, the Sanjeevani with which he was revived when he was hurt, grew from the seeds of the berries that he did not eat. Now it's up to you. You want to see, I want to read 300 Ramayans, I can also read 300 Ramayans, 200 Ramayans. But you are if you have to get into the spirit of the text. Valmiki, it is said that Valmiki had visualized the entire Ramayana before he started composing. And it is said, he himself says, Sare Ayodhya Vasi mere paas aa gaye. They were present to me. I could see all the Ayodhya Vasis. Of course, he could not. But what does it mean? Such empathy, such transference of the self to the object, becoming one with that object. You see? ये जो सब जो कहते हैं ना कि इतना है उतना है कॉन्फ्लिक्ट है, एक रिक्वेस्ट है सबसे कि प्लीज एक बार वाल्मीकि रामायण पढ़ लीजिए. प्लीज रीड बिफोर यू टॉक अबाउट इट. आसान नहीं है. 3 वॉल्यूम में मिलती है ट्रांसलेशन. 2 बड़े वॉल्यूम है उसमें संस्कृत में. संस्कृत हिंदी की गीता प्रेस की मिलती है. एक बार पढ़ लीजिए. एक बार तुलसी रामायण पढ़ लीजिए. तुलसी की राम कथा पढ़ लीजिए. रामायण पढ़ लीजिए. उसके बाद जितनी मर्जी इंटेलेक्चुअलाइजेशन करिए. You can do any amount of intellectualization, but at least first read. First read. हमारे आदत क्या हो गई है in education? We don't read books. We talk about books. You know, I think we should read books and then talk about them.
Thank you, Kapilji. Maybe for today, we will take just one more question. And I thought of taking this one. Shruti mode of transmission, the oral mode of transmission, certainly has its own charm. But do you think it makes our culture more vulnerable to dilution or influence from external factors?
No, it doesn't. Because Rig Veda has survived intact for more than 5,000 years. While Shakespeare's plays, which were printed in his lifetime, in the middle of the 16th century, in 400 years, their text is often under discussion. Whether this was the text or this is the text or this is an interpolation or not. It is the mechanisms of maintenance that our oral culture developed, that our vast body, imagine the vast body of literature, Vedic literature, which has come down to us intact. And we are not vulnerable. We are still have the richest body of literature. And I think anybody I have seen in JNU, you know, young people who read one granth text, intellectual text of Sanskrit, their total self is changed, transformed. See, they become more self-respecting. वो कंधे ऐसे हो जाते हैं. You see, and I remember 4 Haryana girls, first batch of PhD, whom I taught Brahmakand of Vakyapadya, the first of the 3 parts of Vakyapadya, 134 Karikas, Karika by Karika. We just sat down एंड कारिका क्रॉस लेग्ड अपना सोफे पे, वो भी बैठी हैं 4 सोफों पे, मैं भी, और एक एक करके कारिका हमने पढ़ी. Rajneesh ji knows what is the Brahmakand Karika, because I don't know whether 35 years or 40 years ago he was also a student in my class. You see, and after 6 months doing 134 Karikas, all 4 were transformed. I wish I had that letter they gave me after the class, and they gifted me a Hanumanji, which I still have in my home. You see, and they said that they are changed. They are not the same human beings. They are no longer the same human beings. Their understanding has improved so much. So you see, it is the oral culture, and I taught them. If they had, you know, learned studied it from the computer, वो एक CD लगा के बैठी हैं और वो सुन रही हैं, do you think it would have been the same thing? No. Teacher is very important. आजकल हम टीचर को कहते हैं फैसिलिटेटर, है ना? ही इज अ फैसिलिटेटर नाउ, बिकॉज वो स्विच ऑन कर देता है, सारे कंप्यूटर के बूथ से सारे खुल जाते हैं, वो एक सीडी लगा देता है और सब लोग अपना अपना ऐसे लगा के इंडिविजुअल ऐसे कैबिन भी बना हुआ है, ये ना हो कि मुझे वो दिख जाए, ऐसे करके clustered. We are collapsing on ourselves. We are no longer participating. We are no longer interactive. All this technology, people now play chess on the machine. Earlier in my time, when 2 persons played chess, 10 persons were sitting around advising them. Phila chalo, phila. No. Pawn chalo, paddle ko chalo. You see, what was the social experience has become a, क्या कहना चाहिए, schizophrenic experience, split, because you are playing from both sides, isn't it? You're playing from both sides. It's schizophrenic experience. I'm glad that my first 7 years was spent in a village, and from the age of 70 to 74, I was again in the village. I still remain unafflicted by JNU.
Kapilji, to close today's session, if you permit me, and to illustrate this transformative quality of Indian literature, I would like to read, it's just 5-6 lines, the testimony of the great French historian and philosopher Jules Michelet in the 19th century. He was one of the leaders of the Romantic movement, but he was a great historian who wrote massive books on French history. And one day he discovered the Ramayana in a French translation. So this transformative quality of Indian literature does not just apply to Indians alone. Sometimes it also touches, of course, people elsewhere. I will read this because it's available only in French. I have translated it.
Yes, sir.
And
yes.
I think it's a suitable conclusion for today. And we'll continue, of course, our exploration on Tuesday. So this is Jules Michelet, and he says, everything is narrow in the Occident. Greece is small, I stifle. Judea is dry, I punt. Let me look a little towards lofty Asia, towards the deep Orient. There I find my immense poem, the Ramayana, vast as India's seas, blessed and made golden by the sun, a book of divine harmony in which nothing jars. There reigns a lovable peace, and even in the midst of battle, an infinite softness, an unbounded fraternity extending to all that lives, a bottomless and shoreless ocean of love, piety, clemency. I have found what I was looking for, the Bible of kindness. Great poem, receive me, let me plunge into it. It is the sea of milk.
Whatever. Beautiful, sir.
So I think this connects with many things.
This is wonderful.
This is wonderful. And thank you. Thank you so much, Kapilji.